You keep sacrificing yourself for those who refuse to change, calling it compassion. That's not kindness. It's surrender disguised as love. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the self you lose by saving everyone else. Nobody talks about the exhaustion that follows. You pour out energy, hoping your giving will heal them. But the same patterns keep playing. The more you try to rescue, the more invisible you become, not just to them, but to yourself. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, the thinker warned about this trap. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Stop right there. The rawness of that line stings because it exposes an internal split. Your gaze is outward, monitoring others, their needs, moods, failings. You believe if you can fix them, you might finally earn peace yourself. This is wishful, restless dreaming, not awakening. The world rewards the caretaker's performance, but inside, resentment coils tighter with each unreturned favor. Self-abandonment doesn't heal the shadow. It feeds it. Nobody tells you that caretaking is often a form of control. Underneath, there's a fear. If you stop propping others up, they might leave, or worse, force you to confront your own emptiness. Now comes the complication. The thinker, in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, lays out a different danger. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. Your identity mixes with theirs. Over time, it's hard to tell who's changing whom, or if you're changing at all, just dissolving slowly. You lose yourself in service, and your boundaries blur until only exhaustion remains. People celebrate selflessness as a virtue, but unchecked, it hollows you out. When you refuse to acknowledge the needs you deny, shame creeps in, silently. The shadow grows stronger with every compromise. Give enough of yourself away, and there's almost nothing left to offer when you finally meet someone who does see you. Loneliness arrives not because you're unloved, but because you've stopped loving yourself in the process. That's the cost nobody warns you about. This philosopher saw it decades ago. So much sacrifice isn't compassion. It's a kind of erasure, and it can take years, sometimes decades, to realize you're missing from your own life. You might tell yourself that patience will redeem this imbalance, that your efforts will change them. Yet the cycle continues, looping until you finally turn inward and examine what you've truly lost. How many times have you traded honesty for harmony? Your body knows before your mind does. Tension settles in your jaw. Your chest tightens with every silent agreement. You catch yourself agreeing out of habit, not conviction. There's no applause for this kind of self-betrayal, only a vague, persistent sense you've slipped out of your own skin. Friendships fracture, but not with drama. Instead, through shared denial, a slow leaking of truth. Look closely, and you'll find a tricky parasite, the need to be necessary to others. It feeds on your energy each day you bend, nod, and accommodate. Here's the part most people skip past without noticing. The root infection isn't just exploitation from the outside, it's the quiet sabotage from within, where every suppressed resentment piles up as guilt. You want to believe your sacrifice guarantees belonging, but it chains you to people who love the role you play, not the person you are. The more you conflate generosity with self-erasure, the harder it becomes to recognize the sound of your own inner voice. You find yourself parroting other people's opinions, seeking safety in their certainties, hoping for validation that never lands. The cost isn't only spiritual, it's physical too. Migraines, insomnia, a jaw that never unclenches. You work harder to please, punishing yourself with more effort, yet receiving less care in return. Shame doesn't announce itself. It just changes the temperature of the room whenever you dare to say no. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he names this dynamic in a single devastating line. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Notice how your resistance spikes when someone points out a pattern you refuse to see, the unforgettable turn. If you can't name your needs aloud, someone else will decide them for you. Recovery begins the moment you stop chasing approval long enough to feel the emptiness left behind. But that's not the deepest cost. There's a mechanism here most people never see. It's this. When you collapse your boundaries to survive, you dissolve the very self you're trying to protect. There's a confusion here, thinking that keeping the peace outside will create peace inside. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, the philosopher confronted this lie head-on. We cannot change anything until we accept it. Those words sting because they carve away excuses. Accepting your secret exhaustion doesn't make you weak. It exposes the silent transaction, trading integrity for a counterfeit harmony over and over until your reflection looks like a mask. A person can spend years haunted by the urge to disappear only because they've lived with their needs locked away, each unspoken truth feeding the parasite. The philosopher's insight wasn't merely clinical. It was a dare to face the darkness you wish belonged to someone else. Cultural inheritance only sharpens the conflict. In families or communities built on self-sacrifice, loyalty gets confused with self-betrayal. You're taught to feel responsible for everyone else's comfort, but petrified of your own anger. Ever catch yourself apologizing for being hurt rather than standing your ground? That's not sensitivity. It's self-abandonment disguised as virtue. Let's get honest right here. How much of your kindness is really just fear of confrontation? The turning point comes not through grand gestures, but through small, defiant refusals. You become aware of the parasite only when you stop feeding it. Guilt will flare as you withdraw old habits of caretaking, desperate for a role you're finally unlearning. In Psychology and Religion, West and East, the philosopher returns to the shadow. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Now finally, you're equipped for a different kind of belonging, one where your presence isn't contingent on self-erasure, but grounded instead in truth. You realize that the real risk wasn't conflict with others, but betrayal of yourself. Step by step, the old pattern breaks. This new awareness isn't comfortable, but it's the only ground sturdy enough to build a life that's yours. That's not kindness, it's surrender disguised as love. Embracing your truth is the key to genuine belonging. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and comment below. Name the one compromise you've never admitted out loud.